A great hero is selfless. They are willing to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. But it's fair to say that some sacrifices are a little heavier than the others. With that in mind, I'm Will for What Culture, and here are the 10 greatest sacrifices in comic book history. 10. Rorschach sticks to his beliefs. Alan Moore gave the world an amazing graphic novel in Watchmen. We were introduced to characters like Night Owl, Rorschach, and Silver Spectre. It says a lot about Moore's writing and Gibbons' artistry that when Rorschach tells Dr. Manhattan that he would have to be killed to prevent him from telling the truth, that audiences can't help but feel slightly emotional about Rorschach's death. Rorschach sees everything in black and white. Sadly, this means that almost everyone is judged unworthy by him, as everyone's moral compass has faltered at some point. When the other heroes realize that to explain Ozymandias' evil plan would be detrimental, they decide to keep it a secret. Rorschach sees this as wrong and storms out to let the world know the truth. His decision not to join this secret pact shows his dedication to his conviction. Despite knowing that he was powerless against Dr. Manhattan, Rorschach continued to march in the snow. He's not a typical hero, but in his death, he was able to show us the values that made him a real hero. 9. Captain America at the end of Civil War. So in the comics, after Iron Man and Cap had battled it out in Civil War, Cap surrendered to prevent further bloodshed. This isn't the sacrifice we're talking about here though. Before he could be brought to trial, he was assassinated by a sniper's bullet, or so we thought. Cap had embodied the American spirit since World War II, so to kill him off made major headlines in the mainstream media. This death came at the end of Civil War, with Cap being escorted up the court steps and into his trial when he saw a rifle scope trained on the person in front of him and instinctively jumped to take the bullet. It later transpired that Sharon Carter had shot him with a gun, which allowed him to become unstuck in time. But the manner in which the world saw his death meant he made the ultimate sacrifice. The death of Captain America spurred media madness around whether companies were able to kill off such iconic characters. And given the political tone of Civil War, reflecting post-9/11 America, there was much discussion over what Cap's death meant. Regardless of what metaphor you ascribe to, it is inarguable that it sums up Captain America to jump in front of a bullet for a stranger in his last moments. 8. Jean Grey as Dark Phoenix. It's arguably the most iconic X-Men cover in history. Cyclops holding the remains of Jean Grey after she sacrificed herself. As the immensely powerful Dark Phoenix, Jean had been responsible for a genocide when she destroyed a star, killing life on nearby planets. The Shi'ar Imperial Guard then demanded she be put to death, although Professor X managed to negotiate a duel which could leave her alive. The X-Men were defeated, but after Cyclops is seemingly killed, Jean breaks Professor X's psychic barriers and restores her sinister powers. The Shi'ar leader attempts to initiate a plan which would destroy the solar system and Phoenix, but Jean regained enough control to be the only victim of this plan. The storyline is iconic, and the animated series and X-Men films have both adapted elements of the story, including Jean's sacrifice. Despite being villainous in her final days as Dark Phoenix, the fact that she allowed herself to die rather than causing increased chaos and destruction shows her immense sacrifice. 7. Ultimate Spider-Man dies defeating Green Goblin. The Ultimate series was Marvel's reboot of its universe into the 21st century, giving us the Samuel L. Jackson-style Nick Fury and reimagined many iconic characters. One such character was Norman Osborn, who at this point was a mutated monstrosity Green Goblin. The comic series ran from 2000 until 2009, at which point they decided to mix things up a little bit. Green Goblin was on a rampage through New York, heading towards Peter Parker's home. Understanding the potential death and destruction which could be unleashed by his arch-nemesis, Spider-Man battles to his last breath, defeating Green Goblin, with the help of Human Torch. This storyline paved the way for Ultimate Comics Spider-Man, featuring 13-year-old Miles Morales as a new Spider-Man, learning about his powers and responsibilities, as well as trying to fit into a world which is still reeling over the death of Peter Parker. This death had a profound influence on the Ultimate Comics universe, and is in its own right an incredible story. 6. V dies fighting Creedy. Unlike many of the sacrifices on this list, there are few noble intentions behind V's sacrifice. V is a vaudeville villain, seeking vengeance for the heinous crimes that have been committed against him. It is a testament to Alan Moore's incredible writing that his creation in V for Vendetta has gained such popularity, and that readers of the graphic novel grew so attached to a character they were only recently introduced to. In seeking his vengeance, V commits some atrocious acts of barbarism and terrorism, and yet the horrific nature of the Big Brother-like state give him some justification. In the graphic novel, V is attacked and mortally wounded by Creedy after Creedy works out where the Shadow Gallery is. In the film, V goes out in a much more flamboyant manner, killing John Hurt and disposing of countless guards in the process. In both versions, V makes the statement that he cannot be killed, as ideas are bulletproof. He sacrifices himself for his political ideals, as well as his insatiable desire for vengeance, receiving a Viking funeral in both the film and the graphic novel. This presents V as a martyr, sacrificing himself for his cause. 5. Captain America dies at the hands of Thanos. Steve Rogers popped up earlier on this list, but being the valiant and noble hero that he has sacrificed himself on more than one occasion. Although we all know that in Endgame it's Iron Man who sacrifices himself to save the day, in the comics it's Captain America who loses his life in the fight against Thanos. After Thanos has defeated every Marvel hero, the only one left standing is Captain America, who attempts to thwart Thanos' plan with a last-ditch assault. Unsurprisingly, the Mad Titan comes out on top, killing Cap and leaving nobody to stop him, or so he thought. Turns out Adam Warlock and Silver Surfer had expected this plan to fail and devised a different way of stopping the powerful villain. 4. Hal Jordan rebuilds Coast City. Hal Jordan's death and transformation into Parallax may seem like an odd inclusion in a list about sacrifices, but the circumstances by which he is forced out of the Lantern Corps and his turn towards evil is one that shows much hardship and goodwill. Having witnessed the destruction of Coast City, Hal Jordan seeks to recreate his hometown, bringing back people who had died and reforming structures using the might of the Green Lantern Ring. This brought him into direct confrontation with the Lantern Corps, and he was forced to drain the Lantern's main power source as a means to permanently rebuild his lost city. This saw him turn to the power of fear, and with a swift change in costume, the man who had saved the day so many times as Green Lantern was turned into the latest evil incarnation of Parallax. Turning to the dark side may be a bad choice, but the reason he turned against his former allies was not selfish. It was an attempt to fix his own mistake of not being able to prevent destruction. Turning into Parallax killed the man who was Green Lantern, creating a new character to haunt the Green Lantern Corps. In many ways, he sacrificed his good soul for the people of Coast City, which may have been misguided, but was ultimately an incredible sacrifice. 3. The death of Wolverine. So to many people, Wolverine seems almost unkillable. I mean, he's got that insane healing factor, but he has died in the comics. In a spectacular send-off, Wolverine prevented an army of mindless, controlled, and conditioned versions of himself from being unleashed on the world. The adamantium bonding process for this new set of weapons was initiated, and in a heroic decision, Logan slashed the tubes, covering himself in the indestructible metal. Had this army of adamantium-coated soldiers been unleashed on the world, there would have been very little chance of stopping them. Wolverine has walked the Marvel Universe for centuries, so imagine an army of him attacking Earth's mightiest heroes. They would have been virtually unstoppable. Wolverine's death was not in a public arena like Captain America or Superman, it was in the secluded wilderness of Nevada. Given the isolation of the character, it is hard to argue this was not a fitting final resting place for the loner of the X-Men. He didn't die seeking glory in his final issue, he died trying to protect people. Moreover, he knowingly went to the lair of a man who had put out a contract to capture him so that his friends would no longer suffer due to him. This is the action of a true hero and warrants an inclusion on this list. 2. The Flash saving Earth in Crisis on Infinite Earths. Barry Allen's death, stopping the Anti-Monitor in Crisis on Infinite Earths, was one of comics' longest-lasting deaths. This wasn't like Captain America or Superman, where after a couple of years they were brought back. He remained dead for over 20 years. In comics, that is a pretty long time, considering how quickly deaths are explained away or characters are cloned so they can reappear. The Anti-Monitor intended to use an antimatter cannon to destroy Earth, but Barry Allen, recognizing that he alone had the ability to prevent this catastrophe, ran around to create a vortex which would suck the power in and destroy the cannon. In the process of this, the power reached a point where it was far too powerful for his body, causing it to wither away. The Crisis on Infinite Earths story had a phenomenal impact on DC's comic continuity, and following the death of the fastest man alive, a replacement was found in the guise of Wally West. Barry Allen remains one of the most popular Flashes to have donned the iconic costume, with the Arrow spin-off show using Barry Allen, while in 2009, he made his much-awaited reintroduction into the DC Comics universe. 1. Superman dies defeating Doomsday. In the 90s, DC sent shockwaves around the world by killing off the Man of Steel. They couldn't let such an iconic character go out through some dull plan by Lex Luthor involving kryptonite. They had to create a massive threat so they could pit Superman against a more powerful enemy. The intimidating alien they created certainly did this well. Superman fought gallantly to prevent Doomsday from ripping Metropolis to shreds, and in the comic that featured his demise, there is very little pot. It is a blow-by-blow account of how Superman gave everything, even his life, to protect his adopted home. Granted, Superman came back relatively quickly after this death, but the sacrifice he made is one that was so resounding that even the average person is aware of Superman's death. It was that big of a story, and it's hard to imagine the death of any character making such a huge influence as Superman's did. And there you have it, folks, the 10 greatest sacrifices in comic book history. Feel free to drop this video a like if you enjoyed it, and drop me a follow on Twitter at YouSlyDogU. I'm Will for What Culture, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.